Yesterday, Apple announced the most powerful Mac for local AI that has ever shipped. I did the math. And on paper, the base M5 Ultra with 96GB of RAM is the best value machine for local AI that has ever been made. But I'm not recommending you to buy it. I'm going to show you the math and tell you exactly what I would do if I were in your position. Then, we're going to look at the new Mac Mini, because this is an incredible machine that finally can run some interesting local model. So here's the Mac Mini and here's the Mac Studio. Let's look at the most important data. If we go here, we see that there are, of course, two processors, the Max and the Ultra, and the most important number here for the AI is the 614GB per second memory bandwidth on the Max, and 1.2 terabyte per second on memory bandwidth on the Ultra. Those are starting to be serious and big numbers. So let's compare a little bit. DGX Spark has 272GB per second. So less than half of what we get on the Max. We should expect approximately double of the speed per token generation. On the M5 Ultra, we have 1.2 terabyte per second. That means 4 times what we get on the DGX Spark. Let's also compare it to those GPU out there. On my last video, I show how most of those GPU runs at around 1000 GB per second, which is 1 terabyte per second. That means that this M5 Ultra is even a little bit faster. So now it's all about numbers, because what we want to see is what I can get for how much money. So if we start from the point of, let's say that the M5 chip, it's what you should do probably is go for the maximum that you can afford. And I would get exactly this model. The M5 Max with 18 core and 40 core GPU and 64GB of RAM. That is what I would personally going for. If I would get the M5 Ultra chip, I would go for this configuration. Basically the basic model for this hardware, including the basic hard drive. And that is $5,499. This is the same price of an RTX 50, but you get 96GB of RAM. That is 3 times the amount of RAM. And solve the biggest problem that I have with my 5090, which is when I run Qwen 3.8 to 27 billion, I can only have one instance at a time, not multiple agents. Because as soon as the context windows start to grow, it takes the entire memory that I have on my 5090. On here, you would have 3 times that space. And that is huge. That means you can have multiple agents working simultaneously, but also have a larger context window. Now I want to show you the speed at which that model runs. This is the Augmentor agent that is powered by DeepSeek harness. It's run as an extension inside the Chromium website, and at the moment it's running Qwen 3.8 27 billion. I can change model because I have running on the 5090 and running on the GX10, which is the equivalent of the DGX Spark. But of course you can also run it with the cloud model. Now let's ask, what is the token generation that we can expect on the Mac Studio M5 Ultra running Qwen 3.8 27 billion quantized as 6? And also what is out there regarding data on the token generation of the RTX 5090 for the same model. So now this is the model at work. You can see how it is working. It's taking control of the browser to find some data on Reddit. And that is the speed at which this model you can expect running on this new Mac Studio. It's going to be, like I said, a little bit slower, but that is not too far. Of course, you can quantize, make it even smaller, so it will, instead of Q6, you can quantize at 5, which is probably the best idea for the M5 Ultra. But the advantage is not going to be on the speed to which this model will be run, but on the amount of memory that you will have. because having 96 gigabytes of memory will allow you to have basically 3 times the memory that I have on my 5090. And that allows to have these multiple agents working on parallel. And that is huge. That is my biggest problem that I have at the moment. So let's see what is they're doing. It's going pretty deep. It's search inside Reddit and so on. So while we're waiting, let me introduce a little bit this model. This is something that I'm developing. I'm gonna share it for free to my community soon. And again, this is running 100% local. So the Mac Studio M5 Ultra expected to 35 to 45 tokens per second for the Q6 and up to 50, 60 with speculative decoding. So basically 50-60. So if we look to the 5090, it's telling 98 tokens per second. Okay, that is a good average, because when you have a longer context window, the token per second generation goes down. When you just start, it probably run around, like I said, 100, 110. Then the token generation goes down when the context becomes bigger. So 98 is fair enough. What in reality we will achieve is a system that costs as much as a 5090, but has much more RAM. So that is something to consider. So unless you need a really fast system, having more memory, it is something important to consider. So at least now you have an idea of what to expect, because you saw the token generation, you have a kind of idea of what you can do. So is it worth to get the most expensive version of this Mac Studio? Let's look into the details. Here we have the M5 Ultra chip. Again, I would go for this one to keep the price low, and 96 to have enough memory to run it. Look what's happened when we start to change price. We make it a little bit more powerful, and this, it gave us some numbers, okay? Those numbers here is faster first token generation when you have a larger context window, and also improve parallel agents working together. Not a massive gap, but the improvement is there. Now we can go to 256 gigabytes of RAM, meaning running even more parallel agents or increasing context window. But we always need to remember that we need to balance this with the actual speed and the power of the system. So you go to 256 or waiting for October and getting the 512, that is probably more than $5,000. And then you're already at $10,799 or probably $17,000 with 1 terabyte of hard drive. That in reality is good enough. If money is not an object, you can go of course higher. There's really no reason to go into 8 and 16. If we use this just for AI, 1 tera is enough. 2 tera you're extremely comfortable. But that's what it is. This is the reason why I'm suggesting in reality to go for this kind of solution, because it's half of the price. Sorry, let's put 1 tera. It's half of the price, and you get a really good machine, a really good machine. If you're looking for something that is much cheaper and you were undecided if you should get a RTX Spark, you can look into this other solution. So you get the Max, which will have double the bandwidth of the Spark, and then if you get the 128 gigabyte, basically you have at the same price of the Spark, but double the token per second generation, or approximately that, which is again another interesting point. But personally, for 5,000, I would go 100%, no doubt. I would go for the M5 Ultra with these settings. It's just a bit more, but the gain is huge. So I know that this is pretty controversial. There's a lot of people that have their own mind, but what I'm suggesting doing is today on Discord, in our community on Discord, we have AI Stack. This is where the community meets and discuss hardware and local models. So join us, link in the description, and you will have a chance to share your opinions. And now let's look at the Mac Mini, because even this little machine has something worth checking, because it's pretty powerful for what it is. Now we know that these machines went up in price. The base model would be half of this price basically, but for running local AI we should look at the M5, and I would go for the more powerful version, and I would go for the 64 gigabyte of RAM. Now we are at less than $3,000 for this machine. Let's understand the power of this hardware. What's the memory bandwidth for the new Mac Mini M5 Pro? So it's 307. 307 is a touch more of the 273 gigabytes per second that we had on the M4 Pro and on the DGX Spark. It's just a touch faster, but it's not about the speed here. Is that now you can have a computer on your desk that for most people is more than enough, but now can also run a local model. Considering the gap in price, is it worth it? That is up to you. Because if you can, the Studio definitely is another level of machine. And if you run AI, makes total sense. If AI is something that you want to use every now and then, this is a pretty good solution. You could even look at the 48 gigabyte of RAM, but with AI, more is always the better. But always consider that the memory required for the macOS to run with a little bit of apps is going to be 12 gigabyte of RAM. What we are going to end up is having 36 gigabyte of RAM left, which for most people is enough. But if you want to have a parallel agents, that 64 is preferable. That's what I wanted to share today. If you are into macOS, this is an extremely good news. Pretty exciting to see finally the Mac Studio coming out. I'm looking forward to see what are the real number once it's out. But on paper, that is what we could expect. If your question is if I'm going to buy it, you need to join the Discord so we can chat over there. Thanks for staying until the end. Like and subscribe,